So designing your program. Now, obviously, this depends on where you're located. As we go further south, the seasons are longer. But I will, kind of try and give you some parameters. Obviously, 4 to 8 rounds of applications, spaced apart every 6 weeks. Really, you start your applications typically right around the time the grass starts growing. That's when you're doing your first applications, but you finish your rounds after the grass has stopped growing, because you may be doing a winter wax or another treatment just to prepare those trees and shrubs for the winter season and some of the harsh conditions that they could come into contact with. When we do a program, we have a combination of different things. We had a standard program originally that was much more traditional, where we incorporated fungicides, insecticides, and fertilizers. Once we incorporated the Holganix Bio 800, it really took away a lot of the other ingredients that we had relied on in the past. Because one of the things that's different with tree and shrub maintenance versus lawn care maintenance is with lawn care, you're worried about the agronomics, but the aesthetics from a homeowner's perspective are much more important. Are there no weeds? Is the grass green? Is my lawn greener than my neighbor's lawn? When it comes to trees and shrubs, typically all they're worried about is everything healthy and growing the way that it's supposed to? It's not a race. It's not that they're comparing, is my magnolia tree greener than my neighbor's magnolia tree? You don't typically have that comparison from neighbor to neighbor, which makes it much easier to do the right thing for the customers, because you're really just focused on the agronomics. You're just focused on plant health, and you can tailor your program around that. Sure, you have to make sure that you're promoting new growth, but it doesn't take a lot to promote new growth. Those plants are going to grow on their own as long as they're healthy. So Holganix Bio 800 Tree and Shrub. So just like every other Bio 800 Plus, we have over 800 species of soil microbes in one consortium. You can reduce your inputs by up to 85%. You're going to build a much better root system and soil structure for that plant to feel like it's in its native environment. When it does perform that way and it feels as though, and this is from the plant's perspective, if the plant feels as though it's in the right environment and it has all the resources that it needs, it has an unbelievable defense mechanism that it can deal with a lot of the stressors that we are typically using fungicides or insecticides for, and it can recover quickly. Sometimes it doesn't even show those stresses. It really is amazing how a lot of the landscape plants work in being able to withstand a lot of extreme conditions, and just providing the right environment for them. So that's what we're striving to do. And actually, to take you back a little bit, the original Holganix product was the tree and shrub product. We obviously have 6 different forms of Bio 800 Plus now. And that's just the different types. That doesn't include the different zone differences that we have as well, because we have the zone differences for every different type of Bio 800. But it was originally designed as a tree and shrub product, and it still performs extremely well as a tree and shrub product. It's fungally dominant in this mixture versus bacteria dominant in the lawn mixture, and when you're focused on plant health, it just tailors towards a tree and shrub program much better than anything else. Regardless of whether we're in ag and trying to get a higher yield while improving soil health, we don't have to worry about yield. We don't have to worry about aesthetics when it comes to tree and shrub. We just have to worry about plant health, and that's exactly what Bio 800 is designed to do. So pesticides. Obviously, you're going to incorporate some pesticides into your program, but typically when we are running a tree and shrub program that has the Bio 800 Plus as its backbone, we are reducing what we need to use. You want to double check your local regulations, make sure that you are only using products that are approved within your specified geography. You want to use an IPM approach whenever it's possible, but you may still include insecticides, fungicides, miticides, but you're going to find that you are not going to need as much of them. You can take two different approaches on that. You can still do preventatives and realize that you don't need the curatives, or you can roll the dice a little bit and see what curatives you may actually need along the way. When we were doing this, we tend to err on that side. We would just focus on the plant health, not use any pesticides that we didn't have to absolutely use. We had to see pressure before we would start using a pesticide. And then if we had to go to curative measures, we would. But it was very seldom that we would have to do that. Typically, the plant was able to fend off any stressors and be able to recover in no time. And we knew that we weren't causing any harm to the soil or to the plant with unnecessary stress by potentially, in terms that I like to use, giving it a harsh medication for an illness that is potentially not that harsh. So you do have some organic options to avoid that as well. You could use something like cedar oil, and that doesn't, affect a lot of the beneficials that are there. And one other thing that's important to recognize, and you see it at the bottom of the screen, when you are thinking about pesticide regulations, if you just wanted to go out and you did not have your category licensing for tree and shrub pesticides, you can still use Bio 800. You do not, it is not regulated in that way, so you do not need to be licensed to go out and spray that by itself. So you can still do a program that could even be a complementary program to something else that's being done, where all you're doing is a soil health treatment that benefits the landscape. So I know of a few people within the country that have taken that approach, and it's worked for them. And it's just a matter of how you want to sell it, what service you actually want to provide. If you want to make sure that you don't have a competitor in there the same time as you, then you're probably going to have to incorporate everything. But again, you're going to get reductions when you incorporate the Bio 800 Plus in that program. The fertilizers, we were, I think our actual cutback, and I can tell you that the most recent program that we designed over an entire season, we were doing 2 applications that included fertilizer out of 5, and they each were at 1/8 of a pound of nitrogen per minute. So it was a very low rate. The other thing is that when you're doing soil treatments, believe it or not, you're not doing a deep root injection. So that's one thing that is a huge benefit, because deep root injections are labor intensive. So when you do a soil drench, it's much quicker. The other thing is soil-borne pathogens can be transferred from one property to the next property if you're doing a deep root injection, or from one plant to the next plant, and you can sometimes do more harm than good. But we very seldom actually needed the fertilizers. We would put it in there as actually a benefit to the soil microbes to have that food source there, so that we could just keep building up the populations within the soil, because the soil was taking care of the plant.